We opened this year's 2006 video production at, literally you can see, at the end of the season. In addition to our new formations, we also show several interviews from people from all around the world who have had fascinating experiences in connection with the phenomenon.
We start our quest in discovering the crop circles at Silbury Hill. This delightful small dumbbell appeared very close to the ancient mound, although it didn't stay completely intact for long, as its floor pattern was cut by the landowner. These images were taken within hours of it being cut from the field. The shape itself clearly highlighted that the old school shapes are still very much part of the phenomenon's repertoire. Some 9 days after the Silbury Hill event, the field surrounding Wimmer Hill became the next target of the circle makers. This design was to set a theme throughout the entire crop circle season, although very few actually got to see it firsthand. It suffered the same fate as Silbury, prematurely cut from the field, leaving just a patch in the crop. What it actually represented with these mirrored nest crescents is quite exciting in concept. Could we be witnessing time tunnels in the fields of England? On the 8th of July, two formations formed on the same night near Uffington Castle.
The castle is an impressive Iron Age hill fort, once protected by timber walls along these banks and ditches. The tribe that actually carved out the horse on the other side may have possibly resided at this particular location, but also legend has it that the Battle of Barden may have taken place here, King Arthur's famous victory over the Saxons. But in the 21st century we have something else to contend with, and that is the crop circles. What is actually fascinating about these two formations is that they're quite close to the Ridgeway track, but also this particular one has this bird-like quality to it, with this wing fanning out and creating some wonderful shapes inside.
Uffington has now become the centre of attention for the researchers. The first thing we noticed when we arrived at the location on the southern side of the castle was this design was very impressive on the ground. Its representation was now becoming clearer, as these splayed sections of crop, each part with different composition, were indicating feathers pointing towards what I had predicted. It was indeed some kind of bird. The clever aspect was that the wings themselves were created by a series of increasing radii with certain segments laid down into an interface pattern. This technique is becoming more frequent with the circle makers. However, it was rather mystifying as to why it was pointing towards the Uffington horse on the other side. Clearly, its secrets had not been revealed fully at Uffington.
As I mentioned earlier, this programme also concentrates on a series of interviews from people from all around the world, relating to this phenomena that surrounds the crop circles as well. This highlights that this mystery has many unusual elements to it. Well, our quest starts here as I walk through East Kennet Woods. I'm on my way to talk to Shawn Randall, who has some fascinating photographs to show us. Shawn, every year you bring over a group which deals with meditation and everything. In this particular occasion, almost a year ago, you had quite a tremendous sighting on the top here behind us. Can you tell us exactly what you saw on that particular day?
Okay, actually the anomaly and the strangeness is that we saw nothing, but on the photograph there were three objects that were not there to our vision when we photographed them. We were looking up in the sky at an airplane that was flying by, and I was speculating on who the pilot might be, and my friend Sylvia raised her digital camera up to the air, photographed the airplane, and then when the film was developed there were three unidentified unusual objects in the film, and we hadn't seen them with our naked eye, so that's what made it so unusual. We hadn't seen it. Then there were some other photos taken in the same time period with my own analog camera, and in those photos there were other objects, black spherical objects to be exact, and those were also not present to the naked eye.
Now, Shawn, there was a number of photographs which you took where these objects were eventually seen on the actual film. Can we possibly have a look at the first one, which is to do with the aircraft and the two anomalous objects with it?
Sure. Here's this one, and here's the airplane. You can clearly see that. Here's this other object we did not see with our eye, another object we did not see, and then there's a small one up there. These two are very different.
So, Shawn, this is the second photograph which was taken at the same location. What did we see in this particular one?
This is a dark object surrounded with a little bit of red. My friend Sylvia took this photo with my camera, analog camera.
And if we can move to the next photograph, where a second shot was taken in the same location with the same object, I believe.
We do, and it was a slightly different angle. So it seems that that was in the same place, but I had moved the camera angle, and I'm photographing this, and there's the black object, and then there's also that white anomaly in there, right next to it. But there it is right there. The dark one and the light one. Same group, meditating, slightly different angle, so it couldn't have been on the lens of the camera.
So if we move to the very last one, which was taken on that particular day, this one actually shows an unusual mist, doesn't it?
Very odd, yes. This was a photograph taken, and there's a mist in the air somehow that was not visible to the naked eye, but it's clearly on the photo. She also compared the photo before and after to see if there could have been something on the lens or a fingerprint or something, and there was nothing. So this was something that actually was anomalous in the actual photograph itself and in that moment. We don't know what it was.
So, Shawn, you've shown us a fascinating collection here of different photographs with very numerous amount of objects on them. Can you actually sum up exactly what we're actually looking at here, perhaps?
It's difficult to do anything other than speculate on the fact that we could not see what actually came out on the film. But it does make one think that perhaps the veils are getting thinner and we're able now to perceive more with our minds and therefore perhaps to see more with our cameras. And there's just a crossover phenomena that seems to be occurring more and more with technology and with viewings.
Saranac is a surviving remnant of one of Wiltshire's ancient royal forests, much beloved by the Norman kings. It remains a place of mystery and imagination, with ghostly goings-on from deep inside the actual forest itself, eerie sounds emanating from the blackness. But the phenomenon now appears to be surrounding itself around its surrounding fields. But if you approach it from the wrong angle, it can be very hard to find formations at particular places. I think it this way. I must admit, it'd be quite embarrassing to get lost in this field, but many thanks for the farmer to actually put these signs up for us.
Saturday the 8th of July was a busy night for the circuit makers. This was one of 3 formations created on what must have been an important date, Ovington and Wayland Smithy being the other 2. While discovering its features on the ground inside the formation, as I stood in the middle of the design, I was transported back to the very first days when I started on this journey of discovery. I believed what sparked this train of thought was the repeated design of these time tunnels or portals. The first of these designs was at Wimber Hill. Consider for a moment how far the phenomenon has progressed since these simplistic circle sets from the late 80s and 90s. These types of shapes we are now witnessing are a world away from those days, and yet we can still recognise echoes from the early years. The day was hot and it was time to relax at the local public house. Our day became even more intriguing.
Oliver, you've come from Switzerland with your friends to see the crop circles. Now, I believe in 2004 you had quite an amazing experience with a close encounter of an object. Can you tell us exactly what happened on that particular day?
Yeah, we just arrived. It was the first day. We came down from Marlborough and were driven through the military section. There was suddenly there was a little small ball, a silver ball, which was a little bit flat. It was not a disc like you know it from all the pictures. It was a ball, and it was amazing. It was about 1 meter over the ground, and just get up slowly. There was no sound, there was no hole in it, no propeller, no node. Roger and me, Roger saw it first. He saw it in this direction and told me, "What's that?" And I didn't saw it because the angle was wrong for me. We tried to photograph it, but I was too slow. 3 seconds and it was gone. I don't know. We spoke together what it was. First we thought it was a balloon, but there was no node on it, nothing like that. And I don't know. The pity is that it was just 15 seconds or something and it was gone.
Roger, you were also with Oliver in 2004 when you saw this object, but you were in a slightly different position. Can you explain to us what actually happened?
Okay, we were driving on this road near the military area. I was the driver, and I looked around and I said to Oliver, "Huh, what's that?" Because I saw a ball about 5 meters above the ground who was lifting up higher and higher. And I had to concentrate on the road. I couldn't stop because it was a main road, so I only could look a little bit. I saw that it lifted higher and higher, and for me the window was on this position, and I couldn't see it because it disappeared for my angle.
And Roger, do you actually think this object was actually solid in structure?
For me it seems to be solid, like a ball of aluminium. On the bottom grey, and in a fade to white, like aluminium in the sun shining.
So it was reflecting off the sun, basically.
Yeah, but no lights, no lights around, no lights on the bottom, no lights above, only a ball.
So Roger, can you explain to us where you were on this particular day and where you actually ended up when you saw this particular sighting?
We were visiting Stonehenge, and we drove to Amesbury, and then north towards Marlborough. So in the near of Enford, we saw this object.
Well, thank you very much, Roger, for your fascinating experience. Well, clearly these two gentlemen have had quite a profound sighting here, and to have two of them in one location makes the whole sighting extremely compelling.
This is the second formation near Uffington Castle to have formed on the 8th of July, this time at Wayland Smithy.
Clearly this area here near Wayland Smithy has become the major area for the crop circles. It's kind of shifted from the apiary area now. This here now is the major point for the information. Last year we had the Wayland Smithy 2012 scenario. This is kind of saying something different. It's emanating out from one particular source, these multi-dimensional arms, perhaps representing something we've never actually experienced before.
Its striking appearance took another leap with regard to the phenomenon's ability in design. Gone are the familiar circle segments, in come radical three-dimensional principles. However, while discovering these aspects, I met up with Pierre-Henrik Gulfos to tell me his take on the design.
This particular one here at Ashbury is very interesting, isn't it? And you've got a fascinating theory towards what it could possibly represent.
I think that the crop circles are all about changing our notion about what time and space is about and what our reality is about. And this is a very special one because it's really a fifth-dimensional picture coming down into our form. And for me it's about seeing how you have a center in this circle, which is what you can call now eternity, the source of things, and out from this source come different dimensions, like these spikes that go out, so we have different dimension of time-space realities going out from the same center. And I think this is where humanity in fact is headed, is like remembering that we live just in one of many time-space reality, and the crop circles try to make that impression into our collective psyche. And to make us remember that we can also have access to other time-space realities than this one. as we change. So
do you think this is now time for us to sort of move on into this new way of thinking? And the circuit makers are desperate for us to know this new sort of reality.
yeah, well, if one looks about the state of the world, somebody should be really desperate about us to change our notion of reality and how it works. We have to start to understand that we are creators of our reality, not just created or live in an absurd reality of no meaning. We have to understand that we are creator of time-space. If not, we will probably destroy the dimension of time-space that we do exist in.
Pierre's thoughts resonated quite profoundly on me as we reflect on what could possibly be the most impressive formation throughout the entire season. Is there indeed a consciousness that is so concerned with our self-destructive nature of reality that its only communication device are these magnificent designs? Many theories were thrown around on its possible representation. Whatever it is, it must be important. Within days of our visit to Uffington, we found ourselves returning back to this general area, this time at a place called Charbury Hill. An event in complete contrast to the Wayland Formation, this set of 3 aligned circles with rings was curiously aligned to a mound, providing a wonderful observation point. It also allowed us to survey the landscape, and all of us agreed that this was an outstanding location. The actual location of these circles was so remote to say the least. However, our endeavours to find it were rewarded on the ground.
Suddenly, as I walk towards this particular circle, I'm reminded of that wonderful science fiction film by Ridley Scott in 1979, Alien, and that John Hurt moment as he's walking in that huge spaceship covered by these huge alien pods. Suddenly I'm getting quite nervous.
Luckily, I managed to survive the pods. No sign of any acid for blood creatures here. Just beautifully intertwined nest centres, so irresistibly clumped together, you couldn't take your eyes off them. The circle furthest away from the mound also included similar details, although it was the pod centres that stole the show at Charbury. I wanted to spend more time with the pods, however, it was time for us to move on. I took one last look back at the formation from a nearby vantage point.
I've just been to see the set of 3 circles behind me here. Walking on top of this mound, we have some magnificent views from 360 degrees. Now these circles behind me remind me of the Marden circles in 2005, where we had that magnificent centre of every conceivable centres you can think of throughout the crop circle history.
As we departed from this picturesque location, the importance of their positioning in the field also reflected on me, with the alignment of the mound harking back to earlier times.
Well, from bottom of the hillside, we can see it does have similarities to the one at Savernake Forest and Avebury. But until we see it on the ground, it's very, very hard to tell. But with its intertwining crescents, I certainly have confidence in this particular formation.
From an aerial perspective, the design consisted of elements that were starting a theme for the 2006 crop circle season. These 3-dimensional crescents were creating a model of space-time physics, which has generated a lot of interest throughout the world. Its beautifully proportioned crescents can only really be appreciated fully from the air, although viewing them at close quarters from the ground, the accuracy to produce these 3D effects from the air is truly masterful. The precision in the lay and the cut to produce this 3-dimensional effect is quite extraordinary to behold. Memories flash into my mind of the many science fiction films and TV programs I have viewed over the years as I look at this design. Time travel seems possible once more. So is it purely a coincidence? What is intriguing is that we can confirm this event is not without its anomalies, as we will discuss later. Its appearance by the roadside caused a lot of interest, and our time was drawing to a close at Albourne. If indeed these designs are now providing a new science within the fields of England, we have to be now receptive towards this new understanding and embrace it.
I've just left this incredible circle, and it really is astonishing because this one behind me is a set of 3 in the sequence. We had the one at Avebury, we had the one at Savernake, and now this one. Is it showing a door into another dimension?
If ever there was a classic example of how unpredictable and eclectic the phenomenon becomes every season, the West Overton dumbbells would take the prize. This odd selection of dumbbells was a great surprise to us all, as we entered an extremely busy period for events throughout the Wiltshire landscape. Just as the formations were providing designs that included time portals and discussions on Einstein's Rosen Bridge science, wham! Back to square one. Or perhaps not. Perhaps these elusive set of dumbbells were not as simplistic as they would first appear. Was there an important progression within their design?
Well, what a fascinating collection of dumbbells, which spread themselves across a vast area of this field behind me. Over the years, we've seen several dumbbells, but nothing like this, a huge collection of different shapes and sizes. One particular dumbbell has 2 arms coming off it, the first time we've ever seen this. Personally, I love them.
Love them indeed. This was the dumbbell which included the 2 arms, and was a step forward from what we are normally used to witnessing within these retro shapes. One other fascinating aspect was their overall direction within the field, all of them pointing in the same direction. They were pointing diagonally across the tram lines, perhaps to a particular location of importance. Who knows? What I did know was that I felt rather liberated by the experience, providing an opportunity to watch the sun set on the Wiltshire countryside. I now felt like I and everyone else involved with crop circle research had to sit up and take notice of this one. Okay, once again we have the hyperspace portals knocking on our door. As we scanned its ground features, there were echoes of the Uffington's bird segments. However, a certain sadness struck me about this formation that I haven't experienced before in any other one I have visited. While walking through its many pathways, its ground details were far more complicated than I had expected. Indeed, it most definitely felt like I was back at Uffington. The details were uncannily similar. The same hand was also at work in Strait Soley. People wallowed in the sunshine as I continued to be bothered about this formation. Within hours of my visit, the formation was harvested by the landowner. Perhaps his fate was meant to be short-lived. Is the message being conveyed the way the circle makers had planned from the very beginning? Will this question ever be answered?
The ancient hillside of Wimwell Hill has seen many formations over the years. This one here is absolutely huge, with 12 inscribed circles, and many of the people inside here are enjoying the sunshine and the energies which reside within it. And I must say, it is quite exceptional.
Every year, crop circle researcher and author Lucy Pringle organises a scientific day to carry out various scientific techniques inside and control tests outside the formations. What is happening here is that the volunteers in this formation are having their hormone levels monitored to see if there are indeed any measurable changes taking place. The results are compiled for future publications. The world had literally gathered in one place on this day: Americans, Chinese, and even the Russians. For 2006, Dr. Konstanntin Korotkov was a specially invited guest by Lucy Pringle. He is a Russian professor from the University of St. Petersburg who stunned me with his unique theory and research on the phenomenon.
Dr. Konstanntin, you've come over here with some very sophisticated equipment. Can you tell me exactly what you actually have and what sort of results you're likely to get from them?
I've been here in April. I was invited to the big conference in London on the fields, and after the conference we came to Avebury, and there we had measurements in different locations. And it's interesting that the highest transformation, the highest energy, it was found nearby the big stone, the big standing stone. Outside of this it was nothing, just flat. Then in the inn where we came in to warm up a little bit because it was quite cold, it was strange that it was high energy and high variations in the whale. In this inn there are ancient whale, and inside this whale we were able to put a sensor. It was really strong variations. Then we came to Silbury Hill, we climbed on the top and we were able to take measurements over there, and again it was really strong energy variations at the top of Silbury Hill. So from our point of view, it is no doubt that in those particular places there are really strong energy vortexes.
That's very interesting. So Konstantin, studying all of this, how does all this actually relate to the crop circles, and how do you correlate them to what we actually see here in England?
Of course, crop circles that are well known topic in the world, and it is really very interesting, but the main question, whether it is man-made or it is something other-made. I have a concept how it is maybe made, and my concept that it is made by students. So it is just exercises of students, but students of 24th century. Because in accordance with known to us laws of physics, it's possible to send information in the past and to some extent to the future, but not possible to travel in material body.
This was incredibly refreshing to hear such a theory on the crop circles, and I suddenly thought about all these portals that appeared in 2006. Perhaps Dr. Konstanntin was onto something here.
This is brand new, isn't it?
This is, yes, it'd be 2 days old today, actually. Yeah.
It's just about. I almost when we were first approaching, I almost fell right back.
Really?
Right at the border.
Well, actually, I mean, one thing I didn't mention on camera, but the thing is that there's many very powerful ley lines running through this particular field, which have been dowsed yesterday.
Oh, I see.
And they go out through Avebury Truslow and through Avebury as well. So Windmill Hill has many very influential lines, you know. And there's also that as part of the whole energy.
There's a crop circle here almost every year, isn't there?
Well, it's getting that way, actually. I mean, it's very popular up here, I must admit. I mean, it's quite notorious, you
Well,
know.
I can just tell you that when we just got up approaching, which is the same experience I had at the Julia set.
Yeah.
Just even getting to the boundaries of the circle was just like, I almost fell back.
Just hit you, sort of. Yeah.
So it's remarkable. It's so wonderful for the group to be able to
Sure.
have firsthand, 2-day-old circle.
And what is your theory on it, and what do you think is actually causing them?
Well, I don't like to expound on theories too much because it limits the individual experience of people that are in. But for me, there's kind of no question that these are human sourced. I find a little bit elementary at this point.
Okay.
And that something, someone, some force is trying to communicate the language of the cosmos, which is, I call it cosmometry, geometry on the earth, cosmometry in the cosmos. So these are symbols and figures and archetypes that we are being shown to communicate that there is a universal brotherhood, there is a universal language, and it's time that we started understanding that pretty soon we're all going to be united.
Good. And I think the world needs it, doesn't it? At the
Yeah, well, it sure does. And I
Yeah.
think, what better way to bring humanity to clarity globally, 6.3 billion people, than contact, really big contact. And I think that the crop circles are the beginning of contact for people to start to acclimatize to the reality.
Certainly there was a melee of different theories flourishing within this formation. However, I did leave feeling rather uplifted by the whole experience. And did those feet in ancient time walk upon England's mountains green? And was the Holy Lamb of God on England's pleasant pastures seen? Even William Blake was inspired by Glastonbury, and this was our next stop at the Glastonbury Symposium. This is the largest conference in the world on the phenomenon and is held at the Town Hall. Our journey took us to the tour itself, where I met with Rod Bearcloud, who explained his unusual experiences.
Rod, we're here at Glastonbury to do some research on the crop circles. Now, you originally came from Oklahoma and you're part of a particular tribe. Can you tell us who that actually was?
Yes, it's a nation called the Nayukongska. It's a very old nation in the middle of North America, a word meaning children of the middle water.
Excellent. Now, you've been involved in crop circles for a number of years, and you're very interested in the things which are happening around crop circles, certainly synchronicities.
I had been woken at 2:30 in the morning, very compelled to go to Eastfield, and I couldn't get back to sleep. I just tried to dismiss it, and I couldn't get back to sleep, so I finally got up and I said, I gotta go see if there's something there. Well, I drove out there and parked on the side of the hill, and it was raining that morning, and I had a set of glasses. I just kept watching the field, and nothing happened except for my windshield wiper going back and forth. And I waited for almost an hour, and it was getting light out, and nothing, didn't feel like anything was going to happen, so I just went off into town and got a cup of coffee. Well, the next morning I got up and I went to the another end of that field, and I just was simply photographing a very beautiful sunrise. And when I got home, it was a 2-minute segment of tape that I took. When I got home and was reviewing this tape with some friends, somebody out of the corner of their eye said, "Look at that light." And I turned around and I looked, and there was this light going across this field. And they said, "Oh, look, you got something, you got lights on the field." And I said, "Well, wait a minute. I don't want to jump to a conclusion. I want to look," because there was cars around and different things of that nature. But when I downloaded it and I looked at it frame by frame in the computer, I discovered I had videotaped about 5 different types of light anomalies moving out across the field. There was a dot of light that seemed to stretch out into a string, come back together, then take off up into the sky for almost 2 minutes. There was a purple glow that set over the top of a road. There was a set of triangular lights up in the sky. There was a line of 6 lights in the horizon. And then 4 seconds before I turned off my video, I caught what I believe at this day and time was a UFO taking off from a hidden section of field about 750 meters away. And the best I could tell, if this was accurate, it went 3,300 miles an hour. It's something I would have never seen with my naked eye at the time.
And what size of craft was it? Was it quite huge, or was it very small?
If my measurements were correct, and I tried to be very careful with that, it was approximately 21 feet across, and very much eye-shaped, almond-shaped. It looked metallic. There didn't seem to be any other thing attached to it, like wings or anything like that, anything insect-like. It was very much just that shape involved, but very odd. Very odd.
That's very interesting. Right place at the right time.
Right place at the right time.
Meanwhile, back in Wiltshire, extraordinary events were taking place around the Orton Barns area, as a set of unidentified lights captured on still film was causing great excitement. One particular witness told us about what he actually saw this very night.
The sighting happened on 30th of July 2006. Started approximately 11:05 p.m. And me and a friend of mine had arranged to meet 2 other friends in what is known as the silage pit in Eastfield, Wiltshire. And as I pulled in with this friend of mine, pulled into the car park, he said, "What are those 2 lights?" And he quickly jumped out of the car, and I stopped the car and got out, and there was 2 lights flying just below the hill line, the horizon of the hill next to Adam's grave. And from my point of view, they looked like, initially they looked like 2 red lights, flying together, doing aerobatics. together. And I suppose they're like a pinpricker light. And anyway, we stood there watching for a while, and our other two friends turned up, and they got out, and we stood there observing these two lights playing around with each other, blinking out, coming back on again, flying up to each other slowly and just touching them flying away. And this lasted for, I suppose, a total of about 15 minutes or maybe 20. And at this point, our other two friends decided to drive up the road, up to the road below the hill, to try and get a closer look. Me and my friend, we decided to drive up there also, to try and get a closer look. We both looked up and we both saw, well, I think to me, it looked like an aerofoil section wing flying, come over the hill, directly at us, and then it kind of swooped round and flew back beyond the hill. And with that was the last I saw of the phenomena. After that, we came back down here. Our friends rejoined us, and we spent the rest of the night chatting about what we'd seen. That's it.
These astonishing events stunned us all. Our work wasn't done yet, though, as we found ourselves back at Uffington.
Jeffrey, we're at that magnificent Uffington White Horse, and there are some amazing formations just in the locality here. But you're the director of the ICCRA in America, and there's been some amazing eyewitness accounts, haven't there?
One in particular was on the 4th of July in 2003 in Wisconsin. A gentleman by the name of Art Rentella watched a formation, a geometric formation, occur in the span of about 15 seconds. He was sitting in his workshop, which is on the top of a hill, which overlooked a wheat field below. He got up early in the morning and turned on the television set and saw that there was a weather front that was going to be passing past his house. He's somewhat of a weather aficionado, so he got up and went out to his workshop to get some coffee, and he was going to watch the weather front pass his house. So he's sitting by the window, and as the weather front started to move past his house, he watched the trees start to sway back and forth pretty violently in the wind, and that directed his gaze across the street to a house across the street, and the trees surrounding the house started to sway pretty violently, and he just followed the direction of the wind down into the field below that house. And on the opposite hill facing him, he watched 3 circles go down. A first one swirled down, then a second one swirled down, and then a third one swirled down in between them. The whole time frame was between 12 and 15 seconds, he said, for all 3 parts of the formation to swirl down. And he mentioned that there were no lights, unusual lights, no unusual sounds, no UFOs to be seen, but that this weather front was the only thing that was occurring simultaneously with the formation being swirled down. He said that the wheat just wavered back and forth like waves on a lake, as it's known to do in windy conditions, and then they just swirled down one after one after one. So we went out there to interview him, and we looked at the formation. We measured it with the diagnostic criteria that we use. We found that there were elongated nodes in the formation. We found expulsion cavities, which supported his eyewitness explanation. The soil in the formation was magnetized. You could touch a magnet to the soil, and the soil would clump around it. You could walk outside the formation, and the soil would not clump around the thing. The location of the formation was such that it was in between 2 effigy mound parks. The Uffington horse here is an effigy, but these are raised effigies of lizards and birds and other animals, but both mound parks in between collectively have about 150 effigies, much like this one here.
So are there parallels between 2 countries on their positioning to these ancient markings? Jeffrey wasn't the only reason why we were back in the Uffington area.
In 2006, we certainly are now being shown a new level of reality in the formations. We certainly have this hyperspace wormhole theory happening in several formations in 2006. Is this what the circuit makers are trying to portray? Where at Blowing Stone, we certainly have a new level of understanding.
When I talk about a new understanding, I refer to these doorways the circuit makers are showing us, and this is the science that we have only really just started to comprehend. This really is Einstein and Hawking territory, and yet we are being shown rather subtly a sequence of formations that include different categories of wormholes. Earlier in the season, the Abitroso and Savernake forests included a rather ordinary arrangement of wormholes known as the Roman ring. As the season progressed to New Barn, another category of wormhole appeared called the ring hole, which had symmetry of a torus. Here at Blowingstone, are we actually being shown a device for time travel, or rather space-time itself? Now that is astonishing. If it is space-time, as the science encoded into this design is indicating that space-time can also be pointed and curved, theoretically allowing a time travel device to travel across vast distances of space and time, possibly between two universes. If all of these theories are correct, then the crop circle phenomenon has taken the next quantum leap that perhaps we have all been waiting for, and certainly you could feel the excitement surrounding this location.
As I walk through this formation and look at the ground details, it is things we have seen before in previous seasons. But I don't think that's the crucial factor here. What is crucial is how it's perceived from the air. Perhaps we are looking at a doorway into a new reality, perhaps a hyperspace reality.
Located high on the hillside overlooking the countryside around Devizes, this huge Earth star appeared that could only be viewed from the air, as there were no vantage points to witness this astonishing design. Indeed, its majestic, lofty positioning in the landscape was quite befitting for what was possibly the last formation of the season. I literally couldn't wait to discover its secrets on the ground as I walked around the entire perimeter of each arm. Many other people pondered over what it could actually represent. Even the photographers that were there on the day were perplexed by its geometry. So what was it telling us? This is a very intriguing question. As with any last event of the season, we have to be mindful of what the circuit makers are leaving us with. I mentioned that it was very similar to the Mayan star, as the 2005 crop circuit season ended very strongly on the Mayan connection. Well, the Lamate is basically the Mayan star. However, there are still parallels between the 5 wormhole formations that appeared in 2006. So is it possible that these two theories are now colliding here at Edgeworthhampton? It is a tantalising possibility. Let's just consider this angle for a moment as we explore this theory once again.
Well, this is the centre of the entire formation, with these 4 arms possibly stretching reality itself. And it creates this wonderful piece in the middle. Are we looking at a possible portal?
The formation appears to be stretching itself out from 4 positions, opening up this possible portal in the middle. Is it tearing the fabric of space-time? This is a wonderful concept, and yet I was still pulled towards the Mayan influence because of the events in 2005. Are the circuit makers still on this 2012 connection? Before leaving, we met up with Dan Vidler, the editor of UK Crop Circle's website. His 4-time teaching skills allow him to view the phenomenon in an objective manner, which we can all aspire to.
I'm really interested in what's there on the ground and actually going inside, having a look at the way the crop is laid. There are many features which can provide evidence one way or another, although I don't think I ever come to any conclusion about whether something is genuine or man-made. But what I do tend to do is try and report on the facts rather than making assumptions about what I see. So whether it's the quality of the actual lay, or the damage or lack of it to stems, or the kind of clean-cut edges of where the crop is laid. There's so many features which I really think are important to look at, but I really consider them all at the same time, because you can't really look at one area without taking something else into account. I think it's very easy to make quick assumptions about whether you like a crop circle or whether you think it looks like it might be genuine or man-made. And I've seen people walk into crop circles and spend only 5 minutes and then decide one way or another. Usually the ones I've seen who've decided it's been man-made, and then they tend to leave, and literally having been there 5 or 10 minutes. I think that's dangerous because it's very difficult to make a judgment or make an assumption based on basically a gut feeling. I think that can come into it, and I think that is part of it. But for me, it's more about facts. Whether they can be explained or not is a different thing, but actually what's there is more than just whether you feel like it's good or not, I think. And the crop circle at Aldbourne this year, the nested crescents, I visited that on the 15th of August, which was only a few days after it appeared. And I was there with a friend of mine who was taking some photos for me. We were both in the kind of easternmost part of that crop circle on the hill, and I started experiencing some difficulties with my camera, whereby every time I lifted it on the pole, about halfway up it would switch off, and the battery seemed to be not drained, because when I turned it back on it said it was full, but each time I lifted it, it was just switching off. And it seemed quite unusual. It's never happened to me before, and the camera is not very old. So I carried on and managed to get a few shots on the ground, and managed to actually get it working for a couple of pole shots. And then spoke to my friend Steve, who was there as well, who actually was just taking some shots on the ground next to me, who for the last 10 minutes had only been able to take photos in black and white rather than in colour. So his camera had been affected as well, obviously in a different way. But it's quite interesting, you know, it's quite exciting, although my camera seems to be permanently disabled because of that. So I don't know whether I should be happy about it or not, but at least it's an interesting insurance claim, to say the least.
The start of the 2006 season was certainly very unusual for two reasons. Firstly, because it was one of the latest we've ever known. Secondly, that the AP Truslow and the Silby Hill formations we just couldn't get to due to unforeseen circumstances. The Wayne-Smithy formation at Uffington, it certainly had certain interpretations towards it. Was it possibly the Egyptian sun god Ra, or perhaps an impending meteorite strike? The 8th of July was certainly a very busy day for the circuit makers. We had literally 3 formations on this particular night. Obviously the Wayne-Smithy one formed, but just along the way was the Uffington Castle formation and also Savernake Forest. This one included the time portal themes. Charbury Hill at Hinton Parva on the 11th of July was aligned to a mound and certainly harked back to earlier seasons of crop circles. It also had a picturesque view over the entire Oxfordshire countryside. The Aldbourne formation certainly carried on the themes of the time portals and was beautiful in form. The dumbbells at West Overton certainly had memories of past seasons. With them scattered across the actual field itself, was really spectacular to see. Wimble Hill on the 22nd of July was positioned high up on the hill itself. Many people inside the formation mentioned about the strong energies within it. Blowing Stone Hill near Uffington itself was really quite spectacular. This was the set of the 5 wormhole crop circles which formed throughout the entire crop circle season. Are we being shown here a time travel device between 2 universes? We end the season at Etchelhampton Hill. There were many interpretations towards this particular formation. However, the strongest we thought was the Mayan star glyph, the Lammat. Lammat heralds a new way of living on planet Earth, a new experiencing understanding of life. Basically, the transformation of matter to be completed in the year 2012. So once again, this key year has been encoded into the last crop circle of the season. It happened in 2005. Once again, we have it in 2006.
What an extraordinary year 2006 has been on many levels. I left Etchelhampton Hill reflecting on what powerful and inspiring images I have seen within the fields and what this could hold for the future.